right, we're back for another episode of Generative Genius. I'm Steven Strauss, host of Generative Genius, and we've had some really fun conversations over the last few months. Today, I'm really excited. I've got Jessica Serrano, CMO of DIG, who's joining us. For those that don't know, DIG, one of the healthiest fast casual concepts out there, growing rapidly on the East Coast. But Jessica, really excited to have you and would love for you to share a little bit about yourself and DIG.
Thanks for having me. Looking very much forward to this conversation. As you mentioned, DIG is a fast casual chain. We're based in the Northeast. We have over 30 locations. And I would describe our concept as modern American meals that are cooked seasonally from scratch and served in a market line format. And I've been with the brand for about 2 years. It's been a fun ride, and excited to talk to you about what we've been up to.
Love it. And as just a personal note, DIG, one of my favorite stops whenever I'm in Manhattan. I make it to New York quite a bit. Always an easy lunch spot, grab a quick dinner, and it's always $15, which is like my favorite part. I don't know if that's still the same way that it's always been, but man, that's always been like, gosh, what a nice way to be able to have a nice meal in the center of expense whenever I'm in New York.
You nailed it. Yeah, you nailed it. That's our value proposition: is quick and affordable, healthy meals, very vegetable forward, lots of craveable proteins. You know, our charred chicken is one of our best sellers, but we also have lots of vegan options, killer tofu. So truly something for everyone.
Awesome. Love it. Well, thanks for joining. You know, we've been talking to guests over the last few months, and really the whole premise of Generative Genius is to talk about what folks are doing in AI. I feel like there's been so many conversations around AI, and nobody ever really like dives into the specific things that they're doing and how it's coming together and what their take on it actually is. And so we've had some really neat conversations so far. Excited to add you to the mix on that and hear a little bit more around both your perspective as well as what you're thinking about with the folks at DIG and how this is all coming together.
Yeah, I think when people hear AI, it sounds so fantastical and robotic that there's actually a lot of ways that it touches what we do, and it may not even feel like that. It's everything from the way that we create our ads to the way that we respond to our guests' inbound, feedback to us. So it's one of those things that actually touches a lot of parts of marketing today, but it's not as mysterious, I think, as it might sound to an outsider.
Totally. More and more as we get into and folks start to use ChatGPT and all that kind of stuff, along the way, people are like getting more familiar with it, seeing the value that ultimately it brings. I love hearing that. As far as just from a marketing landscape perspective, I mean, where have you seen some early success or early areas that you feel like you've been able to either adopt an AI practice or really jump in and be like, man, this has really been a game changer for me? Just in the way that I've thought about it. You've been a marketer for a while. So like what has changed? What's new? What do you feel like is super helpful just in kind of the AI revolution we've had in the last couple of years?
Yeah, you called it. I mean, I'd say probably things like leveraging it to optimize copywriting is something we've been doing for a longer period of time, but more recently leveraging it for user-generated content was definitely something that wasn't initially on my bingo card. And I think back when I started at DIG, it was so inefficient trying to create that content because really, I mean, if you think about how it happens, it's either some influencer dropping into our DMs or the other way around, or their agent, and a lot of back and forth on trying to negotiate terms and then agree on a brief and then agree on the content. It's like a full-time job. And so therefore we didn't do a lot of it. And then as a result, our ads were, mostly static or like brand generated content that just wasn't as dynamic. And so it didn't occur to me that AI was starting to enable more efficiencies in that realm. And so that's what we've been able to do over the last few months with Scipio. And it's been a game changer just because, one, it enables us to find, the right creators. Two, it just helps us to streamline the actual editing of that content to make sure that it's engaging. And then three, it helps us to also optimize the ads once they're live so that we're doing lots of versioning and focusing on the pieces of creative that convert.
Totally. And I love that, jumping right into the creative concepts and the way that AI can help you there. I feel like most people think about it in like a copywriting perspective and everything else. Or when you think about content, You think about like kind of this, Sora and the ideas of this like synthesized content and the way that can come to life and some inherent challenges that ultimately present there. What are some of the ways that when you talk about using it in content, how are you guys seeing that and being able to manage that versus some of these synthesized content pieces and the authenticity that rings through there?
Yeah, I mean, people probably think AI and ads in the same sentence, and they envision these like really hokey and fake pieces of content. But the reality is, we're still working with real influencers. They're still going into our restaurants, eating our food and capturing that experience. And the AI is just enabling us to do all of that more efficiently, from trying to identify who they are and whether or not their audience aligns with our brand to once we ingest that content from them, versioning out the ad sets so that we're talking to different audiences. So, like I said, it's not anything like crazy or magical. It really is just about helping us to be more efficient. And what that means for my team is that we get to spend more time on the strategy and less time on the execution.
Totally. And, we've talked to companies big and small across Generative Genius in a few different ways. You guys definitely sit, we'll say on the smaller scale, right? Which, okay, not a positive or negative, just a truthful fact. But one of the things that AI has always, talked about is like, how can it be a game changer for both large and small businesses? And for you guys as a small business, how do you feel like AI has really helped to impact the business overall and give you some sort of edge when it comes to competing with maybe, some more well-known brand names that are out there in your space?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I mean, I think that because we are such a lean team, if not for these kinds of tools, it would just be so much more inefficient for us to be doing these kinds of versions. And the reality is, prior to this, we just weren't doing that well. And so as a result, the ads, they were less dynamic and therefore, we were seeing lower return on ad spend. So it's one of those investments that has enabled us to, you know, it's really like a co-pilot, I would say, for some members of the team that are leveraging these tools, and then it pays for itself in terms of the results.
Totally. And as you guys think about that, you mentioned ROAS. As you start to think about, right, we as marketers today measuring more than ever across the board. And so as you think about, the impact of some of the AI initiatives that you guys have been enabling, like, do you have specific metrics or areas that you really want to make sure that you're measuring, like the impact AI is having in a certain space versus maybe just the traditional way of doing things?
Well, I think every marketer is just trying to make their dollars go farther, and so in this environment, you just have to be creating better ads this year than you were last year, and so this is allowing us to get to those solutions faster, right? Because now instead of spending a lot of time creating maybe a couple versions and hoping that a meta platform is optimizing just on the audience side, now we've got the 1-2 punch of also doing lots of versioning from a creative standpoint and identifying which messages resonate with which audiences. So, like, for example, we did a push in the fall around dinner, but we can create multiple versions of a dinner ad, one that speaks to college students, one that speaks to young professionals, and one that speaks to busy parents. And now we're able to both optimize on the content side as well as on the audience side. And so we're just seeing that pay off really across the board when it comes to the KPIs. We're just seeing higher engagement, higher click-through rates, and ultimately what it really boils down to is, more dollars being spent.
Totally. And one of the things I love there is you starting to hone in on a term that we've been talking about for a long time as marketers, right? This generic personalization opportunity that exists, but it's kind of a running joke, I think, in the industry to talk about, oh, personalization is important. Well, yeah, it is. Actually executing on it, though, does become much more important. So how have you guys thought through this idea of personalization and then the impact AI has had in the ability to help you deliver more in a personalized way to your target customers?
I mean, really, at the end of the day, it's about, we want to deliver a message that really resonates with you and doesn't speak at you. People are busy, they're oversaturated with messages. And so if we are communicating with them in a way that is so broad based that it doesn't resonate with your personal experience, we're out of the consideration set, right? So by what AI enables us to do is lots of versioning so that we're able to see, well, you know, is it more engaging if the food is further up front? Is it more engaging if it starts with a personal anecdote about the role that Diggs, plays in their life? And so just it's a numbers game. So just by iterating off of that, we're able to make sure that we're giving a message that really resonates, and then we're taking those learnings into each subsequent campaign. So it just, gets easier and easier to do.
As AI makes us more and more efficient in all of this, one of the things I do wonder about kind of generically is the idea of personalization is great. Is there a point at which we over personalize and we become like a little bit too close? And right, is there like essentially a negative effect of like, we've talked about like the creepy factor or whatever with that
Yeah.
comes with marketing. How do you think through that and then try to like avoid those scenarios for the brand while still being as efficient as possible?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we've reached that point as a brand. I certainly know what it's like as a consumer to feel the flip side of things, feeling a little too targeted. Like, wasn't I just talking about that? So I definitely think it's a balance. And I think that, I'm biased, but I think we're striking a pretty good balance there by keeping it broad enough where, it's not like we're targeting with you, like, hey, yesterday you had a Dig Classic. Why don't you come in tomorrow and, try this other thing that we think you'd like? But really more so, more broad based, like looking at different insights around different cohorts and just testing, different pieces of creative to see what resonates and what doesn't. But it's definitely an art versus science kind of dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, like, have you seen any sort of like pitfall or anything on the negative side in any of the utilization of AI that you've tried to implement across Dig or elsewhere?
No, I honestly no. I mean, if anything, sometimes I'd say actually more so when we haven't enabled AI, sometimes maybe we've gotten it wrong. I mentioned to you that we leverage AI tools when it comes to guest experience as well, and so we are having one-to-one conversations with our guests all the time in DMs or in emails that they send us. And I think, we're just as likely to like miss the mark without the enablement of AI. So, no, can't think of an example where that was AI specific really where we missed the mark yet.
That's super interesting that you say that. And by the way, I love this mentality of like, no, we actually would be less efficient if we didn't do it, right? You'd be shocked how many brands, especially larger organizations, are there's really a scare that they have about just like what this holds and how is my data going to be safe and all these different things that are out there. I love that it's a super positive experience for you guys. I know you mentioned, Scipio earlier and you talked about guest experience. Like, what are some of the most exciting tools that you've seen that you've been able to leverage, see, understand, and that have provided value to you across the AI spectrum so far?
I mean, really, it is just how dynamic it is to optimize ads based off of business dynamics. So, we're in the month of November right now, and Thanksgiving is a huge opportunity for Dig. So, at the beginning of the campaign planning, we created content that was really speaking about our Thanksgiving LTOs, and then we kind of sold out of the products. And so we had these ads that we could no longer run. And what I loved is that we were able to tap into other pieces of content that had evergreen parts of our menu and just swap out the pieces of the ads that we needed to. So it's not like a all or nothing. There's still great content in there from these creators talking about the role that Dig plays in their life, but instead of zooming in on a bowl of, stuffing, we're able to swap in another piece of creative seamlessly that's showing, broccoli and sweet potatoes, etc. So it allows us to, it's a we're a small brand, as you mentioned. So from a budget standpoint, every piece of content is precious. So I think without AI, we might have like thrown away the whole piece of content, but to be able to kind of pull from here and there and be reactive to what the business needs are has been truly transformational to how we think about our ad spend.
I love this idea. It almost gives you a completely unique and new purview on the value of the content that you source, regardless of how you source it at any time, right? Because we've often, I think, worked on this idea of like certain campaigns have certain pieces of content, And then the campaign window runs and then it's done. And there's this right there, like there's dollars spent across all of that. But, you know, like from what I'm hearing you say, you guys are actually able to leverage get more out of the content that you're sourcing simply because there's an element that says, hey, portions of the content we're getting can be leveraged in a lot of different ways. You just got to think through what those ways are.
100%. I think that was a total unlock for us. You know, like we ran ads over the summer that were really strong, and then we wanted to repurpose that content, and we realized like, oh, there were some pieces where maybe the creator was dressed for summer. We just like cropped those pieces out, and the rest of the content was still really useful. We're able to capture, you know, take other pieces of content where people are wearing sweaters, and then the whole thing works. So, yeah, it allows us to just be a lot more efficient with the precious content that we've invested in creating and repurposing it.
Totally. And you've talked a couple times around, you know, leveraging this in your paid social strategy. I'm curious, you know, anytime you bring something new into the mix, something new into your organization, buy-in, is everybody going to be on board? What does it mean for the strategies that we've had in the past? How did you navigate those waters? How do you think about that when kind of bringing on either, whether it's a new partner, a new strategy, a new idea, but under this guise of AI, right? What does that mean for some of those traditional strategies and how you have to think about that to successfully implement?
Yeah, I'd say when it comes to getting buy-in, one of the tried and true methods is non-commitment, right? So just saying like, hey, let's just try this for a couple months. If it doesn't work, then we go back to the way we've always done things. And so we do that lots of times, and sometimes that doesn't bear fruit. And that's the beauty of a test as we move on. But this was one that had immediate impact, and really quantifiable impact. You know, we work with an ad agency that, you know, really had no skin in the game, other than the KPIs that we're performing against. And they were immediately like, yeah, this content is resonating way more than the ads that we were previously running. So that's like, you know, check, green lights. And then there's just like the anecdotal feedback that also feels really good as a marketer, where you start to hear people say, wow, like you guys are killing it on social. Has something changed? And, you know, you just start to hear that qualitative feedback from people that the content is resonating with them as well. In fact, you know, because we are a small brand, a lot of the talent sometimes are DIG employees, present company included. And so I was even like in a piece of content as a mom talking about how DIG, you know, helps me to put midweek meals on the table, and got messages from people like, hey, I got served this ad and I saw you in it. And so as my dad would say, the money's working. So yeah, I think we've been getting like a lot of signals that this has been the right decision. And ultimately, as a marketer that has accountability to, you know, leadership and a board, I've got those hard numbers that I can point to, but there's also a lot of other soft signals that we are, you know, ushering the brand in the right direction.
Gotcha. And any like specific challenges that you faced along the way in trying to implement the strategies? I mean, sounds like you've done a good job, at least, of tying them to very direct goals, looking for a way to test methodology before, you know, actually going out and executing large dollars. Like any other challenges people should be aware of or think through as they're thinking about presenting to leadership, changing that strategy, bringing something new something new to the table.
Yeah, I mean, I think there have been things that we've learned along the way, because it does require a different skill set. You know, when you are working with creators, it's important that you're writing briefs that are well thought out. And so there's things that we've learned along the way of like, oh gosh, maybe we weren't that clear about that. We're going to need to be more clear about that in the future. So, you know, little things here and there tactically, but I think the real key is just to like learn fast and, you know, take those learnings into the next wave of iteration. So we've been able to roll with the punches pretty well overall.
Totally. Are there anything, you know, just on the innovation side, right? AI, gosh, it's changing so much, so quickly across the board. Have you seen anything recently that like you're excited about, maybe that you haven't tested out, or like as you look to the future, you're like, man, as soon as AI can do this, like that's going to be a huge game changer. Like I'd love to see this portion of our business change or shift, or like what does that like more broad future outlook look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say um, just getting more and more efficient, really. I think about AI truthfully a lot in the way of guest experience. I mean, we get hundreds of inbound messages either via DMs or emails or Google reviews that require a lot of time to thoughtfully reply and make sure that we are, hearing those guests, honoring their feedback, righting any wrongs. And so to a certain extent today, AI is able to help us with that, but it still requires quite a bit of human interaction. And I can see a world where, AI will only streamline that more. And again, only in service of redeploying those hours and energy into better uses of the team's time. So feeling really optimistic about how it's going to, especially for small brands, allow us to do more and do it more efficiently.
We've talked a lot about kind of the ads front and the content front and things like that on the AI side. You have brought up, though, a couple of times the customer service piece. And I love this because, what this all maps back to as marketers, right? A lot of times it's like, well, my goal is to get the person there, right? Like that's kind of the way that it was thought for a long time. And now it's like, no, I got to get the person there. Then the customer experience that they have is so important. The feedback loop to continue for them to be a loyal customer, extremely important too. I'd love for you,
Totally.
you mentioned getting, hundreds of these messages. How have you guys thought through the way that all those parts work interchangeably or work together to make sure that you continue to have this loyal customer base that returns to Dig time after time?
Yeah, you said it perfectly, which is, the ad spend is really helping us to bring new people into the funnel, but there are numerous touch points along the way that help us to make sure that we're driving frequency and ultimately brand affinity with those guests. And so it was just 2 years ago where maybe we could get away with having like a 24 to 72-hour response time. I'm telling you, that is completely unacceptable today. I mean, people just expect real time responses. So that's why it's so important that we have tools that allow us to, you know, that when you message Dig's Instagram, that you feel like there's a human on the other side that's getting back to you and getting back to your specific, issue. And so the great thing is now there are tools that allow us to see, like, okay, this person is writing us an email, and oh, by the way, here's their order history. And so we have like kind of an understanding without having to go back and forth with them about who they are, why they're reaching out, what's important to them. And so we have really found by shortening that response time, that just creates so much loyalty because we don't always get it right. Sometimes we may forget a sauce or, a delivery driver may be late. But if you know that when you reach out to us, we are responsive and we're going to make it right, it just like helps to get them to come back again faster and without hesitation that, they're going to have another negative experience.
And do you guys like? Is there any sort of success rate that you map and like, hey, like this was so effective, or like, can you match their next, whoever the customer was, like the next time they come in to Dig? Like, is there anything fun that happens on the back end like that? Like, we get to celebrate, like high fives all around.
Well, I mean, we do have quite a few metrics that we're looking at the back end, but I think AI, could even take us to the next level in terms of even better and richer analytics. So there's only upside, really.
Very cool. I love that. Well, Jessica, this has been super fun. I really appreciate your time walking through and hearing a little bit more about you and about Dig and how you guys are leveraging AI across the board. Any final thoughts, parting words?
Oh my gosh, no.
All good. We talked about a lot. Not that there should be. We talked about a lot today, and got through a whole bunch. I love hearing that you guys have leveraged AI. One of the things that always scares me is in talking to some folks, they're like, we're not really leveraging AI yet. And it's like, really? I mean, like at this point, at least dip a toe in the water. And so I
Yeah.
love to hear that you guys have got some things running on the customer success side, making these customers valuable, loyal, future customers again, right? Very,
Yeah.
very important. I love hearing that you guys are doing it on the ad creative side, being able to leverage it for your content needs and bringing all the content together, all those different pieces. Do you have, I guess my last question then would be, do you have a third area? Are you trying to explore or think about one last area of the business right now that you think may be impactful just from a leveraging AI perspective?
Yeah, I do think nutrition is another area that is largely untapped. So, today, if you go on our menu, Do we have labels for allergens? Yes, but wouldn't it be interesting if you could go on our site and actually start from a place of, I'm vegan, what are the options for me? Or, a little bit more of a personalized ordering experience. I think there's still a lot of room to go. And there are brands and tech platforms that I think are starting to scratch the surface in that area. So very excited about the future. And my advice to marketers who haven't dipped their toe in AI is definitely just to try things. I mean, I have tried things and decided that the technology wasn't there yet and it wasn't right. I have explored like a chatbot, and the one that we experimented with just wasn't in a place that was quite right for us to go live with. And so we like failed fast and moved on.
Sure.
So that would be my advice to anybody who's like a little unsure about that. If there are parts of your business that are too cumbersome, or have a less than ideal guest experience, and you hear about something out there that may have an AI component, I wouldn't get scared by those two letters, and just test. There's no harm in experimenting.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for your time today. This has been a really great conversation, super insightful and informative. I love the specific examples of where you guys are leveraging and using AI too. I know we've had a lot of conversation around like, gosh, let's stop talking around it and talk about it, exactly how we're using it. So thank you for being so candid with us today. This has been really fun, and I really appreciate it.
It's been my pleasure.
All right, Jessica, we'll talk soon.
Thanks.